Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Blackshaw and usually I'm not such a sweaty mess. But today it's about 1 billion degrees outside. I'm sweating already. I've had to close all the windows so that the mic doesn't pick up anything from outside and I'm dying already. I've had to put this hat on because look, what is this? How do you guys that live in hot places, how are you still alive? How do you cope with this? How do you do your hair? Like, this is the first time I've put makeup on and it's already sweating off of my face. Like, it's ridiculous. So I'm going to talk really quickly through this case because I desperately need to go and jump in an ice cold shower because I literally feel like my eyes are sliding down my face right now. So today we are diving into another true crime case, and this one is actually really recent, which is not normally something that I tend to do. I tend to try and focus on more of the historic ones just purely because there's more information out there than the newer ones. But this one I thought was really interesting. This one has really provoked a reaction, particularly from mums, because it raises the question that if you believed that somebody had hurt your child or your children, like, how far would you go? Or what would you do to somebody that you 100% believed had hurt your children? So this is the case of Corinna Smith, who was formerly known as Corinna Baines, but in her court papers she had changed her name. Baines was her married name, but she changed her name back to Smith. Corinna met and married Michael Baines when she would have been in her early 20s and he would have been in his early 40s. And so there was a considerable age gap between the two of them. However, despite this, the couple remained quite happily married for 38 years. They lived together as a normal blended family in the Neston area of Cheshire. So fast forward to the evening of July the 13th, 2020, so just last year, when the now 59-year-old Corinna was out for the evening and she was given some really devastating news by her daughter. The daughter had alleged that Michael, Corinna's husband, had sexually abused her when she was a child, and that this sexual abuse had gone on for years. And not only was it just her, but it had also happened to her brother, Craig, who was Corinna's son, who sadly took his own life in 2007 when he was just 25 years old. By this point, Michael is now an 80-year-old man. Obviously, Corinna was shocked and angry and just devastated by this. And at some point the conversation led to Corinna's daughter agreeing to take a lie detector test to prove that what she was saying was the truth. The women had also decided that Michael should also take a test. So they phoned around, they found a company, Corinna explained the circumstances and what she was after. And during this phone call, she, although understandably upset, was cohesive and very collected in how she came across. So she paid the £600 that was needed to secure the booking, and the lie detector test was scheduled. Michael at this point was at home and was completely unaware of the conversation and the allegations that had been made against him. At around 9:30, Corinna got dropped back at the home she shared with Michael. I cannot imagine how Corinna must have felt at that moment, walking into the home of a man that you've shared your life with for 38 years, but a man who also has just been accused of violating your children in the most horrific way. The range of emotions she must have been feeling must have been very, very intense. After she'd arrived home, Corinna made several phone calls. One of the phone calls was to her son, and during the course of this phone call, her son couldn't believe what he was hearing. He didn't believe what his sister was saying. He didn't believe that Michael was capable of doing this, and basically called his sister a liar. Now, Corinna then called her daughter back, and her daughter was very angry that her mum had told her brother what was going on. You know, she didn't want anybody else to know. And I guess she was also probably hurt that her brother was accusing her of basically lying about being abused as a child. After these phone calls, Corinna was left to think. All of this information is stewing around in her mind, what her daughter had said, what her son had just said. You know, could she believe that the man that she loved for 38 years could possibly do this? And then she recalled a conversation that she'd had with Craig right before he'd taken his own life. Now, Craig had been briefly in trouble with the police and spent a short period of time in prison for assault. Now, Craig had told his mum that the person he had assaulted was a paedophile who had sexually abused him. And the evening before Craig took his own life, he made a statement to his mum and said, "Mum, he's a paedophile." Now, Corinna had assumed that he was talking about the man that he had assaulted and never pushed it any further. But now with all this other information that her daughter had just given her, suddenly things are starting to lock into place, and she's adding 2 and 2 together. And whether she's coming up with the right answer or not, we'll never know. Just before midnight, Corinna had reached the conclusion in her mind that her daughter must be telling the truth and that Michael was a paedophile who had sexually abused her children. Now, as a mum myself, the rage that you must feel when in your mind this person has hurt your children must be incredible. Even just thinking about it, it sends my heart crazy. She decides that the lie detector is now no longer the route that she wants to go down. She doesn't want to wait for the tests. Michael has hurt her children and now she wants to hurt Michael. Corinna went into the kitchen and grabbed a large black bucket. She took the kettle, filled it with water and started to boil it. While she was waiting for that, she took 3 1-kilo bags of sugar out of the cupboard and opened them and poured them into the bucket. When the kettle had finished boiling, she poured the water into the bucket. She then refilled it and started to boil it again. Once again, when it boiled, she poured it into the bucket and started to stir it. Now, this created a syrupy consistency. And I've only ever heard of mixing sugar and water to use as a weapon, I guess, in like prison documentaries and things that I've used, because if you pour that over somebody, pouring boiling water over somebody in the first place would do considerable damage, but the consistency of water would cause it to just bounce off of somebody. It would roll straight off. Whereas when you add in the sugar and it takes on a more viscous kind of texture, it sticks to the skin. Therefore, it will do considerably more damage than just tipping boiling water over someone. Now, this whole process of boiling the kettle and whatnot took around 13 minutes to complete, which is important later on. Corinna picked up the bucket and walked down the corridor towards the bedroom where Michael was sleeping. She opened the door, walked in, and poured approximately 3 litres of this boiling hot, sugary liquid over Michael's torso and arms. Immediately, Michael screamed. This would have been agonisingly painful. Corinna walked out of the bedroom, placed the bucket in front of the front door and left. She walked down the street, she walked past 8 houses and stopped at the 9th house. She began hammering on the door. Remember, this is just gone midnight by this point. Her neighbour looks out of the window because, if someone's banging on your door at midnight, you're probably not going to be that inclined to open it. But the neighbour looked out and saw Corinna sobbing and pounding on the front door. When the neighbour opened the door, immediately Corinna said, "I've really hurt him. I think I've killed him." And she was very distressed. But who incidentally wasn't close to the family. It's unclear as to why Corinna would go to this particular neighbour, why she would go 9 houses away from her own. But the neighbour called for an ambulance and for the police. When the police entered the bedroom, they found Michael in so much pain that all he could do was whimper. The skin on his arms was literally peeling away. Michael managed to tell the police that Corinna had poured boiling water over him, and one of the few things that he was able to say was that he wished that he would die because he was in so much pain. Corinna was immediately arrested and was in so much distress by this point. She was described as literally howling while she was crying. One of the first things that she told the police was that Michael had hurt her kids. So her state of mind at this point was very much that Michael had abused the children. Michael was taken to Whiston Hospital, where he spent weeks in a burns unit and a high dependency unit, and he appeared to be stable for much of that time. However, that very quickly began to deteriorate, and on Tuesday the 18th of August 2020, Michael passed away. Michael had suffered serious burns to 36% of his body. On Friday the 9th of July 2021, Corinna Smith appeared at Chester Crown Court charged with murder. Now, her defence tried to argue that the charge should actually be manslaughter due to loss of control. Now, the problem is, in the eyes of the law, loss of control needs to be sudden and quick. The fact that Corinna had spent 13 minutes creating this sugar and boiling water mixture kind of took away from that argument. Also, during that time, she had placed the sugar wrappers into the bin. She had time to mop the floor, even where she'd obviously spilt, water or sugar or whatever on the floor. So the fact that she'd had time to tidy up after herself also went against being able to use that as defense, or as a partial defense. Ultimately, the jury were not convinced by the loss of control argument, and so Corinna was convicted of murder. She was given a mandatory life sentence with a minimum term of 12 years, and also should mention that Corinna had no previous criminal record. Now, of course, we have to stress that Michael had never been convicted of abusing children, and of course, what with him obviously passing away, he has no way to defend himself, so we have to tread carefully with the language that we use and how we talk about Michael, because these allegations have never been put to the test through a police investigation or through a trial. Obviously, there is a big divide within this family. Some of them believe that yes, he did do it. A lot of them believe that no, he didn't. But ultimately, what this case comes down to is, what did Corinna believe when she poured that liquid over Michael? And in that moment, she believed that as a mother, this man had forced her children to go through unspeakable experiences. And so I guess my question to you is, as a parent, if you are a parent, or picture yourself as a parent, how far would you go? What would you do? Would you go down the same route as Corinna and take justice into your own hands? Would you go straight to the police and let the police deal with it? Honestly, like I said, we don't know whether these allegations are founded or not. If I was in the position of Corinna and I thought with absolute certainty that somebody had hurt my kids, I'd probably be, in the cell next to her right now. So, it's a horrible, horrible position. It's completely blown a family apart. Like, nobody wins in this case, because it's either a case of an old man who was falsely accused and suffered a horrendously painful death and the family's been blown apart, or the allegations are true and there are children who suffered this horrendous abuse and still a family's been blown apart. I'm literally getting shinier and shinier every second I carry on talking, so I'm going to wrap this up here, but let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you do the same thing? Is this the right sentence? Was it the right charge? If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, and I will see you guys next time.
I failed you so many times. I committed so many crimes, and I was pretty sure of myself. You gave me reasons to be somebody else, baby. I'm home